Hello, I'm Brother Nathan Cochran, and I'm the director of the St. Vincent Gallery, and I'd like to invite you to come and visit our current exhibition. It's about Brother Comas Wolf, who was a monk, architect, church designer, and sculptor. It runs until February 28th and features several of his statues and altars and 45 design drawings that he made for churches throughout the United States. Brother Cosmas was trained in Munich, and he was an architect, a church designer, and an altar builder, and a sculptor. And he was extremely talented in all of those different areas of art. Here we have a drawer full of some of his drawings, and they're a little bit hard to store because they're different sizes, but these are some of the drawings that he did that are not in an exhibition that we are featuring Brother Cosmas in the gallery itself. The Brother Comas Wolf drawings were discovered in the mid-1980s when St. Vincent College had to move the blueprint room to a smaller location, and Father Frank, the director of maintenance, saw that there were a group of drawings, about 100 of them, that had no relationship to the buildings at St. Vincent, and he offered them to me for the art collection. And when I saw that they were signed by Brother Comas Wolf, a 19th century monk of St. Vincent, I took them into the collection. But actually finding out a lot of stuff about the drawings has occurred over a long period of time. We discovered that one of the drawings was actually the design drawing for this candlestick, specifying where the gilding should go and even where silver stud or ruby decorations should go. But it was only this year that the co-director for the exhibition, Jordan Hainsey, discovered that the candlesticks were actually made for the old high altar of the students' chapel, which burnt in 1963.
One of the biggest assets of the Comas Wolf exhibition has been the St. Vincent Archives. The Archives has a collection of vintage photographs from St. Vincent, which have enabled us to make amazing connections to the show. One of the connections I was able to make with the candlestick was its use in St. Vincent's history. We saw it in the old student chapel where it served as a high mass altar set candlesticks, where they would use 6 of them. It was also used in the centenary that celebrated St. Vincent's 100 years on that altar, which actually sat amidst Bearcat Stadium. It's not surprising that it was in the student chapel, as many of the motifs we see time and time again in Brother Comas Wolf, his work. The motifs of the floral designs and especially the pyramidal shapes. Taking a look at one of Brother Comas Wolf's altar drawings, we'll see some of the same motifs that we saw in the candlestick. We see the floral design in the fluting, and we also see the pyramidal shapes. This was an altar design for St. Boniface Church in Quincy, Illinois.
One of the problems with investigating the Brother Cosmas drawings is that many of the churches that were built based upon the actual drawings no longer exist, such as St. Boniface here. The church was struck in the bell tower by a lightning bolt causing a fire, and the church was then torn down and replaced with a new one. Unfortunately, the Diocesan Archives doesn't know what happened to this altar or the altar pieces from it. This is the top tier of a reredos from St. Boniface Chapel up on Chestnut Ridge, which is a property that is owned by the monks and where in the 19th century monks would go and raise potatoes and other crops and also go there for some rest and relaxation. So Brother Cosmas built and designed a church for the use of the monks there. This ends up being one of the last pieces that he made. The altar for the high altar was in 3 tiers, and this was the top tier. And in 1895, the Bishop of Pittsburgh gave to the chapel this painting. And when we had rescued the reredos, I had originally thought that the painting went into this niche. But I discounted that because the painting is too large for the niche. And it wasn't until a little earlier this year when Jordan Hainsey actually lined it up.
As Brother Nathan alluded to, this painting gave us quite an area of contention. When we held it up, it obviously doesn't fit. It wasn't made to fit there, actually. But it was after a gift from the Bishop of Pittsburgh that they wanted to use it, obviously. So after I lined it up, we found the screw holes, but then I also found 2 photos in the archives, which showed that it was in fact in the altarpiece.
The sculptures on this altar originally came from the choir chapel at St. Vincent, which was partially destroyed by fire in 1963. They've been separated ever since. The St. Benedict was missing for several decades because it was stolen by a student who returned it on an Ash Wednesday in penance. The St. Boniface has been in storage basically since 1963, and the Adoration of the Magi part of the sculptural group has been in a chapel in the monastery. They're sitting on an altar that came from St. Boniface Chapel up on Chestnut Ridge.
One of the ideas we had when putting together the Brother Comas Wolf exhibition was to recreate the altar as close to the original as possible. Since the actual altar that the statues originally set on was separated from the statues during the fire, we used the altar that was at the ridge, and the size actually accommodated the statues, though a little squeezed, but it still works. We were also able to use the artistic talents of the monks of St. Vincent, namely Father Robert Keffer. He was able to refinish the tabernacle as close to the original as possible, and he also was a great asset in restoring the baptismal font that had been abandoned as well.
This altar, when it came, was in 5 different pieces, totally covered in dirt. Dull cobwebs. We had no idea what was underneath. And what was the amazing thing is we didn't do any restoration on this bottom part. This is all just cleaning and oiling down. And we discovered the red here, which was totally covered with dirt. We didn't know that was part of the original scheme. You have silver leaf here, gold leaf, gold and silver paint, and on the side of the altar you actually have some blue that was part of the design too, and may have been elsewhere in this design, we don't know. The door of the tabernacle and the tabernacle itself had been entirely stripped down, so we stained it. It's a different wood than here, and then the door was completely taken apart and regilded in the gold and silver as was the original design. Now, this piece was really a challenge. This came, it was entirely in lead base, white enamel with some black trim, again covered with decades of dirt. We had no idea what we were getting into. Some of it had been sanded down and restored not in a very good way. We took off the paint, found that underneath was gesso, and because it was made of several different types of wood, so he gessoed it with a white plaster to unify it, and then it was done in gold, and we discovered these original colors. Again, it's this oxblood red and a bluish gray. And I would think, after looking at the various trims and things and finding the color underneath, that this was pretty close to the original color scheme and the original color intensity. So the whole thing originally was gilded, blue, red, and in this style. And this was great fun, but quite a challenge. It's still not done, so we'll have to work on the interior and then all these places underneath that only a curator would see. So that's coming up next.
I hope you've enjoyed this little tour of the exhibition on Brother Comas Wolf, who was a monk, architect, church designer, and sculptor. You can find more information about the gallery hours and times on our website and on our Facebook page. Thank you.